Welcome to another edition of the official Catchup podcast. It's the first week of the new season in the West, the East, and the South. And I'm joined by Chris, as always. Chris, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Still hot weather-wise. I was absolutely beetroot walking to Strollers yesterday. I usually walk down to Ainsley Park from Haymarket, but Strollers is not kind of a bit more of a distance, so I probably underestimated the old fitness from lockdown. I'm certainly not as fit as I used to be. It took me about an hour to get there, and I was I was absolutely beetroot. So as soon as I got to Strollers, I had a cup of Peroni, and I was good. I was good after that.
Have you got a shift in the farm with that shot on today?
I do feel like when I put this on, actually, I do feel like I was kind of like, oh, people think I'll be going to fucking church or something, but no, no.
You obviously haven't had a camera for a while, but I didn't really know what your dress sense was like. But certainly that is a shot that I would expect from a farmer. Here's me. I feel quite casual in my New Balance t-shirt with you and your shirt. I feel like I should go away and get changed and put like a nice polo shirt on or something to dress up for the occasion.
I'll never wear a shirt on this programme again if I'm getting slacked off like this.
Ah, well, what do you expect? Moza gets it for his hat, so I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, fire away. If there's ever anything you want to slack me off, then I'm fair game. I always say that in any situation. I am fair game. Okay, so it was the second week of the Lowland League and the first week of the West, the East, and the South. Tiers 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I think it is. I think we had obviously you've got that development division in the West of Scotland, but we'll start off with the Lowland League. Just run through the scores in general. Bet Rangers beat Gretna 3-2. Cali Braves lost 2-0 to Bo'ness. Civil Service Strollers beat Open Goal Broomhill 3-1. Cowdenbeath lost to Galliford Dean Rovers 2-1. Rangers B defeated Cumbernauld Colts 6-3. East Kilbride beat Hearts B 4-1. Edinburgh University drew, East Stirlingshire 1 each. Spartans drew 2 each with Celtic B, and University of Stirling beat WT Star 5-0. Where we start then, Chris? It looks like a good result for Bo'ness against Cali Braves. They've started quite well.
Yeah, I put that as the game of the week because they were both sort of in form. They were both undefeated going into the game. Kind of been a wee bit impressed with how Bo'ness have started in Caledonian Braves. I think in terms of Bo'ness, a lot of people might say that they've not had a hard start or they've not played, one of the top teams. But I mean, not to concede in 3 games and come away with maximum points, 9 points out of 3. Yeah, fair play. I mean, it's like the old saying: you can only beat who's in front of you. If they do get a wee bit of momentum going, it's good for them. I probably underestimated them a wee bit this season. Actually, I mean, it's easy to say that when they're sitting top of the league after 3 games, but we'll see how it goes. Obviously, when we get further into the season, but I think, I read somewhere Max Christie was saying that he kind of wants to be under the radar, and obviously we got on this show and it doesn't go unnoticed by us. So I'm sorry, Max, for. No, I think Bo'ness are doing really well. Jamie McCormack got his hat trick against Edinburgh Uni, so that's that's brilliant. The big man in goals, Musa Debaga, and Jamie obviously were in the team of the month. Defensively, and obviously Jamie McCormack getting a hat trick's pretty rare. But yeah, I think they've actually got a solid team. It's just when they play the bigger teams, they need a wee bit of a belief about them. They need to actually go out. I think there's plenty of teams in this league that you think they could probably get results against. Your East Kilbrides, your Spartans, your Open Goal Broomhills, but sometimes there is a wee bit of a lack of belief there. Like, are we actually better than them? I think if you're a football team, doesn't matter what, you have to go out thinking you're going to win every game. It's sometimes hard to do that if you're up against a real quality side, but yeah, a bit of momentum, and it'll be interesting to see when they do come against a top side in the league.
Yeah, I think for me, I think certainly Bo'ness certainly totally flew under the radar as far as I was concerned. I hadn't quite realised how well they started in terms of obviously not losing a goal and obviously now sitting top of the league and look like they're coming at a bit of form. And I think especially at the start of the season, it's important to get that form because you can't win a league at the start of the season, but certainly you could potentially lose it early doors if you lose a few games and you kind of get behind the eight ball a bit. So I think for me, Bonus look good at it. Again, Cali Braves probably were quite surprised with their start as well. I probably had them way down the table. If I was going to write the table out from 1 to 19 before a ball was kicked, and probably had Cali Braves quite low, but certainly doing okay in terms of the Lowland League just now. So I like what Cali Braves do. I think obviously we talk about kind of new clubs and how they're set up, and you get a lot of the football snobs that probably don't like a team like Cali Braves because they're different and they want to do things a totally different way to everyone else. But I think for me, I always like to see Cali Braves do well because they are different. They are trying to do things a bit progressive and a bit new. So fair play to them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree fully. Probably similar to yourself. I think they had a really good season last season compared to where I thought they would be again. So if they can do that, they brought back Ross McNeil, who's obviously a big goal scorer previously in the league. We obviously know what he can do in terms of getting goals. One guy we probably have to kind of highlight was Luke Main, who was in the team of the month. Young midfielder, kind of going under the radar a wee bit, doing all the dirty work, but people have been raving about him being sort of one of their key guys. So it's good, and obviously we've mentioned Jamie Walker loads as well, but he's solid as well. Scott Forrester in the middle, Mark Kelly out wide. I mean, Cali Braves have a good team. It's just sometimes you do wonder. I mean, there's a lot of good teams in this league, and it's. We talk about Bonus being undefeated. I think they're only one of two or three now that are undefeated so far. So I think that's going to be the way of the league, a way of probably a lot of leagues this season, where you're not going to have too many undefeated teams, even 3-4 games in.
Is there a danger for a team like the Cali Braves, do you think, where their good players could potentially get snapped up by a team, say, for example, a team in the West who, at the top end of the West, or a rival Lowland League team who are fighting at the top of the league towards the middle of the season, where maybe a team are maybe struggling to get players in and they need maybe a bit more depth, and those kind of players like Cali Braves are the kind of guys that you could see maybe moving on?
Yeah, well, I know for a fact, obviously I'm not going to grass anyone, but I know there was a few sort of West teams looking at Jamie Walker for a player that's still there. Ross McNeil obviously went to the West and came back. So I think it depends. I mean, a lot of especially from the younger players, the mentality is they probably want to move up more than move down. In terms of the levels, I know that was one of the boys that was at the Braves previously. That was his feeling. I mean, it would be great playing for Auchinleck Talbot or Kilwinning Rangers or a team that in the West that could probably potentially go out and win things. But I think some of the younger guys have it career focused, where they probably would go and play for maybe a League Two or a League One team over a West of Scotland team, and it makes sense. I mean, but I think players, I think it's based on individual players and what their what their needs are, especially if they're travelling. If they're, like you say, I think Cali Braves are one of the weirder ones because they are kind of in the West. So you're probably right in the sense that there are a few players. Certainly, you look at the Braves and think, well, most of their players are probably West based and would probably move to a West of Scotland team. But I think in terms of the younger players, they're probably looking to get moves into the SPFL.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Certainly, I think if you see some of the guys maybe who've played Lowland last year, who moved to the West this year, certainly have kind of said that about how maybe find that playing some of these Lowland League teams is a bit lacks of atmosphere. It's maybe not as feels like although it is kind of higher up the division, certainly in terms of the tiers, it's maybe not quite the same as playing week to week in the West. So yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I think if I'm obviously not a manager of a West of Scotland team, but certainly if you're a West of Scotland manager, you should be keeping an eye on those kind of players, certainly to see what you can pick up if you are looking to get something different. Because at the end of the day, if you're in the West or in the East, you're going to be fighting against the teams in the league to get the same players from that league anyway. So if you can maybe think outside the box and get to a team like Cali Braves or, for example, like another team, Cumbernauld Colts, that maybe have kind of one or two star players that are probably the best player in their team, then it's a good opportunity certainly for them to get a decent signing. But Chris, you were at Civil Service Strollers. You mentioned that just there at the start of the podcast against Open Goal Broomhill. First defeat for Moz's Open Goal Broomhill, 3-1 to Civil Service Strollers. How was the game?
Yeah, it was good. Apart from, as I mentioned, an absolute trek getting there, and obviously being absolutely beetroot and ScotRail, not wanting to talk about them too much, but yeah, I'm not a fan of ScotRail on a Saturday, to be honest. But yeah, the game, it was a really strange game. It felt quite passive. Obviously, I mentioned that on Twitter. I felt it was kind of like it didn't have a tempo. I don't know if it was just it was almost like both of the teams at the beginning were kind of trying to figure each other out, but they were. I mean, it wasn't even like a pre-season sort of feel about it. It was kind of like just people going about kicking the ball or whatever. It just didn't feel like there was any sort of penetration by any team in the sort of final third. They were quite happy just to sort of kick it about and very, very kind of passive. But I mean, that's not to take any away for the players' efforts. But yeah, Broomhill did take the lead through Kirk Broadfoot headers. There was quite a wee bit of a debate of whether one of the, like either a Civil defender or Mark White might have got the final touch, but I think we'll happily give it to Broadfoot in that instance. But Broomhill, it was just, it didn't even feel like Civil were really in it. When Broomhill were ahead, but kind of a miscommunication between the Broomhill keeper and one of the defenders, and Robbie Cole just got in between them, equalised for Strollers. Going into the sort of second half, you kind of felt that whoever sort of took the game by the scruff of the neck would go on and win it, and it was really Strollers. Lewis Kennedy, who we obviously know, he was at Stirling Uni for many years. I actually, just to comment a wee bit on Lewis Kennedy, I was actually a wee bit surprised when when Strollers announced his signing. I think Lewis, technically, as you would imagine, is really a really good footballer, as you would, coming from Stirling Uni. I mean, it's not, it's what they tend to focus on. But obviously, he's a smaller player. He's probably less physical, but yeah, the more I kind of think about it, it's absolutely perfect for Civil, because I think Gary Jordan kind of used to be that. He used to kind of play a free role, but now, as I call it, in the last sort of few years, he's playing with tricky wingers, and certainly Robbie Cole and Innes Lawson and Lewis Kennedy are these sort of players that can cause issues when they're cutting inside or they're crossing balls. And Lewis Kennedy kind of cut inside, really good finish, really kind of curled it. Absolutely, really peach of a goal, to be honest. And that kind of gives Strollers the lead. And Broomhill were kind of pushing towards the end of the game, and you kind of felt when they put Kirk Broadfoot up front, it was probably do or die for them. And unfortunately for them, it was, it allowed Strollers to get another goal as Innes Lawson sort of broke away on the sort of counter, kind of put it into Alufe, and obviously that was 3-1 Strollers. Strollers very deserving of their victory. Open goal, like I said, I think they have a lot of quality. It's hard to, you can't deny it, but they just need that. I don't know what it was. I mean, there were certainly guys like Brogue Watson that impressed me, but it was very straight. As I said, it was a strange game. I certainly think Broomhill, have played better from what I've seen in terms of their highlights and whatnot. I don't think Si Ferry will be happy. Obviously, I've spoke to George and Moza. I think they're off the agreement that it was just a bit of a bad day at the office for them. But yeah, just a wee comment on that. Obviously, I was kind of beside Moza and Kevin Kyle. I didn't really get introduced to Kevin Kyle because obviously Moza and him were doing his own. They were kind of doing their own thing. But I must admit,
I kind of friends now. That's terrible, isn't it?
I was kind of.
That's shocking.
I'm sure Kevin Kyle knows who I am now, but I'm sure he was told. But I actually really enjoyed their mini commentary that I was getting at the side of my ear. Kevin Kyle, in fairness, he was giving a lot of credit to the Strollers players. Robbie Cole in particular, and I couldn't separate him or Lewis Kennedy for man of the match because they were both good. As I say, the tricky wingers as I call them. I know Robbie Cole's not really a winger as such, but he's a a forward, but I actually enjoyed it. He made a reference about the Demogorgons and Stranger Things, which obviously gave a. Can't remember what he was comparing it to, but everyone obviously had a bit of a laugh like that. So I'm a bit of a Kevin Kyle fan on commentary. I've not heard too much, but I'll certainly listen out more. Bit of banter between him and Mozza, so I enjoyed getting that wee side commentary when I was watching the game. But
a different view of the game, isn't it? And listening to somebody talk through the game. But the question is, how many players' names did Kevin Kyle get wrong? Because he loves to get their name wrong.
He was all right, I think, that I heard anyway. Obviously, like I said about sort of lacking knowledge in non-league, he probably didn't know a lot of the civil players. Like I think he obviously knew, I think Conrad Ballatoni and stuff like that. But I think the more the season goes on, he'll obviously get better and he'll remember players. It wasn't a knock on his knowledge last week in terms of football. Obviously, he's been a player at the top level in Scotland, so that would be a bit foolish. But I think it'll come. Jamie Semple was an interesting one actually, because we talked about Jamie Semple. I actually didn't think he would be there. I didn't think he would stick to the centre and actually be like an out and out striker. I thought he could maybe drift wide as well, but he seems like he's probably going to be their main striker. And I thought, we mentioned last week, I felt they were kind of lacking in that department, but Jamie Semple, he's a top player, so I think they'll be all right now. So
I noticed, they brought in a boy from Morton just before. Was it Friday? Was it Friday? Friday?
Josh Gemmell, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so I think for me, you maybe find that obviously with Sai and Kev's contacts, etc., there's probably an opportunity there to get some guys in on loan from kind of higher up the leagues that they maybe see once teams know what they're doing with their squads properly, and maybe see some guys kind of moving out and with those kind of guys involved in the coaching and things like that. You might see that, for example, I think obviously Sai's also well connected himself, but obviously that open goal thing helps probably that as well and gives the players exposure and puts them under a bit of pressure, because I think you'll probably find that as well, you would think that as the season goes on that the more people come in to watch open goal. What was the crowd like on Saturday? Was it
wasn't too bad. It was I think Hearts being at home probably affected it. Obviously being an Edinburgh team, you Civil would probably expect a few more fans. There was a few people with like Hibs tops on and stuff, so you would expect if they were at home, it might be a similar story. But
I think that's common. I think across our level, I think we noticed that yesterday. Obviously, the Buffs were away to Irvine Meadow, and obviously Rangers were playing the early kick-off, and Kilmarnock had their flag day for the championship flag. So unveiling. So I think it was about 8,000 at Rugby Park yesterday. So probably looking around Meadow Park, it was quite quiet in normal sense of a Meadow Buffs kind of derby match. I think even if you looked at probably the friendly we played them, the Eglinton Cup match we played against them a few weeks back was probably just as busy, or if not busier. But you probably see that impact, and I think we can probably touch on it just now. But you've maybe seen a lot more teams kind of wanting to move to Friday nights. I think obviously Broomhill are a team that are kind of looking at that as an option.
Yep.
I think that makes a lot of sense for this level of football, because, as you say, like if you are up against a Hearts or Hibs, if you're in the East, or if you're Rangers or Celtic, Kilmarnock and like Ayrshire, for example, or Glasgow, maybe Motherwell or St Mirren or these kind of teams, and then you need to try and do something different to try and get more fans in the grounds. And if you've got obviously floodlights, which you should have it at Tier 6 or most to Tier 6 and Tier 5, then I think it's a no-brainer for me. Certainly when we as a club at Kilwinning, we're keen to do that, and I think we've talked to a few teams already this year and got some games switched to play on the Friday night. One being the Darvel game that we've got a couple of weeks' time has moved to Friday night, and that suits both teams. It's away at Darvel, but they've got the floodlights, they've got the big ground, and nobody else is playing that night, so you maybe get a bigger crowd, a bigger gate, and better atmosphere. So I think that's a smart move for certainly for Lowland League teams.
Yeah, well, funny enough, it was actually I did kind of overhear Kevin Kyle mention that I think Broomhill, that was the initial plan. Obviously, playing Friday nights, there would be probably less interruption with, for example, Cumbernauld Colts, who they've had a bit of a strained relationship to start things, as we know. But Yeah, I think Edinburgh. Well, I was going to say Edinburgh City. There, it's what FC Edinburgh now. Their idea of Meadowbank was obviously playing on a Friday. Leaf Athletic play at Meadowbank too, so I don't know if it would be less disruption for them on a if they wanted to play a Saturday, for example. But I think that Friday. I think you're right. I think Friday nights are kind of ideal, and especially if, like, say you're a FC Edinburgh. It's hard saying that, by the way. That's ridiculous. But you can get a crowd there on a Friday. Hearts, Hibs, whoever's playing on a Saturday, you might be lucky and get a few of the SPFL Prem fans coming to your game on the Friday and then going to wherever on a Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think obviously if you're trying to pitch it to fans as well, you try to pitch it maybe like more of a kind of night out atmosphere rather than maybe like almost like come and watch your team. Obviously, you're going to have your hardcore element of fans who watch you play Friday night, Saturday night, Tuesday night. Doesn't matter when you're playing; they'll come and watch your team. But you probably want to try and attract that. Maybe not the neutral as such, but I can think of probably a couple of hundred people in Kilwinning that, for example, will go and watch their big team, if you like, or are kind of maybe passive football fans and they've got nothing to do on a Friday night. They'll come down and get a few beers, walk up the road, go to the pub after or whatever, and have a Friday night out. And that's what you can do, especially if you've got a kind of set up with a social club and things like that. That a lot of these teams do. I don't know enough about the Lowland League grounds certainly to know if that's a possibility for a lot of the teams there. But certainly, if you look at the West and probably your traditional junior kind of East of Scotland teams, and you'll have those setups with the social clubs attached to the grounds, and you can get a pint at half time. And I think that probably leads on to something that I've been thinking about quite recently is about drinking at football. I think you see, obviously, you're not allowed to drink during the match, but I find it really odd that that's still a rule, and especially at the lower levels. And I think to grow the game, to grow the fan base is maybe something that maybe the government can have a think about and start looking at, even on a trial basis, because I think it would make a big difference to the fan base, and obviously trying to make sure these clubs can survive. And because let's face it, they'll probably root it all back to trouble at football grounds. But let's be honest, it doesn't really matter. Like to me, or not to me, that to the way that people behave, you're still going to drink anyway before it or after it and things like that. And if you can maybe get a pint during the game, you'll maybe have a couple of pints during the first half and a couple of pints during the second half, and things like that. It'll just be done a different way rather than probably drinking 2 pints at half time and 2 pints before it and 2 pints after it. So I would like to see something from the government to maybe try and start to trial that, and certainly our levels of football, and maybe see if we can help kind of grow that on a bit.
We had obviously put out a poll kind of asking whether non-league games are more appealing to SPFL games because the fact that you have your social clubs, you can drink during games. I honestly think it's a pipe dream. I mean, we can't even get people drinking on train. Well, people do. I saw a few people drinking on trains yesterday, but it's not meant to happen. And it's similar with football. You'll get your bottle of Bucky in your jacket or whatever, and kind of sip on it when the stewards aren't looking or whatever. But I think it's a pipe dream. I don't think the Scottish Government will ever let that happen or even trial it. I mean, people drink at football anyway. I mean, to me, I think it was around 300 or 400 people that voted, and they did about 70% of them said, it'd be more appealing to go to a non-league game because I can drink. But I mean, if I'm going to, an SPFL game, I'll probably go to a pub before it, or I'll be in the city centre or whatever and drinking before it anyway, or perhaps after. Whether I can drink at the football, if I'm 5 minutes, 10 minutes away from a pub, doesn't really bother me. I mean, that's maybe shocking for people to hear, but honestly, I had a couple of Peroni strollers yesterday, but I mean, it's not I go to football because I like football and not to,
Yeah, I mean, obviously from our perspective, I mean, I'm not a drinker at all. Don't always have been, but I think from a club perspective, I see the benefits of it, and as you say, people are going to drink anyway. I think you probably find that if you're able to drink during the game, you probably just drink the same amount of you were going to drink anyway. You probably just drink your pints during the match, and rather than at half time. I see
People do that. People literally just go. There was certainly a few people up at sort of Kelly Hearts that sometimes they would just stay. Like it was just a social thing for them. They would just go up to the social club, probably not watch much of the game, and then just it's probably the older generation where they come out and hear that there's a goal being scored or they hear something. But other than that, they're just there to chat and have a drink with their pals. Yeah.
Maybe we have to start the campaign, Chris. Maybe we have to start the official Catchup bevy at football campaign. Maybe that could be the
maybe a better name, a more palatable name for the decision makers.
Came off the top of my head. That was a bit of a digression from the football that we have within the Lowland League. So I don't really know how I got into that, to be fair, but it was something that's on my mind, so I thought I'd bring it up anyway. Looking elsewhere then in the Lowland League, we mentioned we've talked about East Kilbride already quite a bit this season. Beat Hearts B 4-1. Don't really know much about Hearts B, to be honest, but fairly convincing victory for East Kilbride.
Yeah, I think the biggest sort of shock probably from opening day was them beating Berwick Rangers 6-0. Obviously, Berwick Rangers had Jamie Piper sent off as a key defender for them. But the more I've kind of seen the results, so the more I think that was just a one-off. We might even mention that actually. That I think it was probably just a kind of just a one-off result really. Not to say that Hearts B don't have really good players. Obviously, we mentioned the likes of Connor Smith, who's probably looking to be getting in amongst the first team in the future. So, East Kilbride are a quality side. You know what I mean? I mean, it's tough for these B teams sometimes. Especially, I always feel on the sort of physical end of the game. Certainly, I feel maybe Celtic B are kind of similar, where I think they find it harder against the physical sides. Certainly, that was the case last season. From what I saw, East Kilbride, they had they had a blip against Rangers B, but they're back. They're back on track again. One thing that annoyed Cy Ferry losing to Civil Service Strollers, they're coming into that East Kilbride game, and East Kilbride will be right up for that. And it probably is not ideal to go into the playing a top side after a tough loss. And East Kilbride, Neil McLaughlin. I was thinking I probably made a mistake with my team of the season last year because he probably should have been in it. Neil McLaughlin's obviously a quality player. He made the team of the month this. But then again, I think guys like Connor Doan and Finlay Gray, obviously they had really good seasons too. So maybe but I often do feel like maybe when he moved to East Kilbride, Neil McLaughlin, I probably he was in amongst so many quality players. It was like I probably expect him to stand out more. But when you're playing with quality, it's hard to stand out. But he's certainly done it. The last 3 games at the start of the season, and he's still I still rate him highly as ever.
No, he's obviously he's a quality player, and he's always has been. But you always find that with Neil. And obviously, I think East Kilbride obviously made a few changes during the summer, and maybe would have thought, who knows if Neil would have stuck around. And I'm glad he stuck around because he's a quality player, and he's also shown that now at the start of the season he's had. Elsewhere, then, one of the teams that probably surprised me at the moment is University of Stirling. Sitting second top of the league. They got a 5-0 defeat off a Dalbeattie Star. I think we've talked about Dalbeattie already. We thought they're in for probably a tough season. Certainly losing 5-0 to University of Stirling just kind of compounds that a little bit more.
The bunch of students, it's a really good start. I was actually, I don't think you'll mind me saying, I was kind of messaging Chris back and forth for a wee bit yesterday, just talking about football as we do sometimes, and it's been a really good start for them. Dalbeattie, I mentioned the fact that I think we're a wee bit worried about them. Obviously, they've changed manager. A lot of their mainstays that had been there for years. It'll take time to gel, and that's true with any team that sort of changes up. Even the likes of Broomhill, we know their quality, but again, it's gelling time as well. With Dalbeattie, obviously, a lot of the boys I think are making the step up rather than down. in terms of where they used to be with their playing career. So, you look at that result and think that's a tough one. Obviously, they got beat by Edinburgh Uni as well on the opening day as well. So it's I'm probably more concerned about Dalbeattie than I was. Stirling Uni, I don't think they've missed a beat. They did lose a lot of key players. Obviously, Connor Dorn we've mentioned. They didn't lose as much of the sort of the seniors that people think. It's not like a complete overhaul with their squad. There's still really good players in there. Obviously, Marcus Lavery. I keep mentioning Team of the Month, but Marcus Lavery was in the Team of the Month. He's been kind of filling in at centre back and done really well. Callum Ray doing really well. It's good to see Jason Jarvis, obviously, getting amongst the goals. James Stokes, James Berry. They've still got a core there that I think they'll be successful, and they always seem to sort of be, at least 10th, which seems always be. It's always like their spot in the league is usually 10th. But I was looking at something recently made by Drummond Calder, who's a East Stirlingshire fan, who does like the sort of history. I got sent something recently where he had done an all-time Lowland League, and interestingly enough, a lot of people probably don't realise this, but Stirling Uni are actually third all-time, just under East Kilbride and Spartans. So they have been successful in the past, and they certainly have been a mainstay in the league in terms of being founding members and doing really well. So yeah, you can never count out Stirling Uni. Chris Geddes he's won awards. I probably didn't give enough praise for that, but he's won, uni awards and stuff like that for his coaching and management. And we all rate Chris. We all rate the job he does at Stirling Uni in terms of, the proofs in the pudding with some players going higher up or at least sort of maintaining the level they're at. So yeah, can't praise Chris. I don't want to stick up to him because I have to speak to him, and I know he loves it. So,
just point out, though, he still hasn't sent me a University of Stirling hat. I'm still waiting patiently for my University of Stirling cap.
Did he promise you that? Did he?
Well, I'm not going into too much detail, but I helped out Chris one time, and I mentioned the hat, and I thought maybe one day he'll send me a cap, but never seen it. Never seen the cap. Because obviously I've got an admiration for Chris and his hats, his post-match interviews. I do love a post-match interview, no matter what team it is. I just sit and watch them all Sunday morning, usually, across the board. But it was one of the ones that I remember. The only other game in the Lowland League we want to talk about then, Berwick Rangers beating Gretna 3-2. Obviously called this very early on that I felt like Gretna were going to struggle. It looks like that's going to be the case in terms of where they are sitting rock bottom of the league. They haven't won a game. Shipped 12 goals in 3 games, which is far from ideal for Gretna's perspective. Berwick obviously getting back on it, getting a win back on the board.
It was a weird one because I was at Civil, and I checked the score, and obviously Gretna were winning 2-0 at the time. I often thought Stephen Hatfield would never play 2 strikers, but obviously had Russell Curry and Ben Spellman. Yeah, so I was like, that's great, and obviously they're winning. They were beating Berwick 2-0, and thinking, wow, this would be a massive result for them because obviously I'm on record as having Berwick Rangers as my dark horses, and if they lost to Gretna, early, that's it's almost devastating for that prediction. Looking ahead at who they have to play and whatnot, with all due respect to Gretna, but it just seems like. I think Stirling Uni as well. They were in that game. It seems like they're probably not used to holding a lead. Berwick came back in the second half. I think Lewis Baker. That they got the first one. Then Lewis Allen double. We were talking up Liam Buchanan's transfer from Cowdenbeath, but it looks like Lewis Allen's done really well. Obviously, he was in the team. I keep mentioning the team of the month. I'm kind of just hyping up a wee bit. You've got to plug it in. But yeah, Lewis Allen seems to be the key man, and he's just continuing on from the sort of towards the end of last season. So it's good. But yeah, Gretna just have to kind of learn how to to hold leads, and I'm sure. Obviously, Jonathan that listens will be a wee bit disappointed with that result, considering that would have been massive. Even a draw there, I think, would have been a really good result. But it's a team that, again, with all due respect, we mentioned Jelen, Gretna. There's a couple of lads that have been there and played with each other before. I mean, but they did lose quite a lot as well. So there probably is this Jelen time that needs as well. But yeah, I'm not kind of on the same wavelength as you, Ben, where I think I'm more worried about Gretna than Dalbeattie. I'm certainly more worried about Dalbeattie and Edinburgh Uni than Gretna. In fairness to Edinburgh Uni, they got a decent draw against East Stirlingshire, and they obviously have got a win as well over Dalbeattie. So I think it's going to be interesting at the bottom as much as it is at the top in the Lowland League.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it already, I mean, there's what, 4 teams on, 3 different, no wins, and Dalbeattie also only played 2 games, but the rest of them on 3 defeats already, and you probably look at Gretna. I think for me, the one thing for Gretna that stands out is that strike force. I think if you talk about Russell Curry and Ben Spellman, we talked about Ben Spellman quite a bit last year at Edinburgh Uni. I hadn't realised to actually joined Gretna, certainly, and maybe that transition from playing Edinburgh Uni to go to Gretna is probably one of the ones that maybe a wee bit more difficult. We mentioned Russell Curry. I think he's a player that has been popular, certainly from a few West teams. I think we're quite interested in Russell Curry last season. But he's obviously chose to stick to a team player nearby to where he lives, and certainly he's a player with pedigree and knows what the goal is, and that's maybe if they can get the service into those guys and create the chances that they need to get goals, and then Gretna will be okay. But certainly from what I've seen or heard from Gretna so far, it doesn't sound all that great. You mentioned Dalbeattie there as well. I think we knew it was going to be tough for them in terms of obviously that transition and with the new manager. And I'll be honest, I really, really hope Dalbeattie do well because I really like Jordan Wilson. I think we mentioned this the other day, but I've got a lot of time for Jordan. Young manager, obviously trying to make way in the game as a coach, and but then obviously you get Cumberland Colts as well, who have started pretty poorly. Cowdenbeath, obviously coming down from the SPFL, started pretty poorly as well, and you wonder maybe Cowdenbeath are they a team perhaps that maybe are going to get really pulled into this, and not seen an awful lot from them as yet that says that they're going to be safe. I'm not talking about being safe for 3 games in, but certainly I think if you're a Cowdenbeath fan, you're going to be worried. I'm sure.
That's. I said this last time we were on, but I don't rate their chances. I think mid-table at best. The more I look at it, to be fair, they've played some really informed teams. Obviously, they got beat by Gala, who are up again, probably another surprise package early on. But Danny Galbraith, obviously coming back was kind of huge for them, and there's guys that are really sort of approaching their prime in terms of the Gala squad. So I think it's. Yeah, it can be for interesting. I'm not concerned at the moment in terms of them being right at the bottom, but certainly if you're a Cowdenbeath fan, yeah, like you say, it will be a wee bit worrying because I don't know how many Cowdenbeath fans probably expect them to be quite high up in the Lowland League or new off the standard, but certainly they probably weren't expecting to get beat off by the likes of Gallifreydine Rovers and teams like that. So it's. I think it'll be an eye opener for a lot of these sort of, but that's always the case with when SPFL teams come down. They probably, I'm sure there's probably fans that expect, this is an easy league, we'll just go back up. It's never that case, is it?
No, I think obviously you've got a mixture there of teams that obviously are good sides and just quite haven't got through into the promotion because obviously the promotion relegation situation within SPFL to Lowland and Highland League is pretty poor. These teams expect to come down and be able to trample through the good sides, and it's certainly not the case. I think it's only going to get worse for the SPFL teams as the West and the East to Tier 6 sides start to come through, and obviously they're still going to be pretty slow in terms of obviously that promotion relegation, but the longer that goes on, you're certainly going to find that it's going to be more difficult as these teams come down, because you're probably going to find out you're going to get your Auchinlecks, your Davos, your Linlithgow Rose. These sides are going to probably, when you see in the Scottish Cup, you'll find that these teams are about to compete, not a problem, across the board. All right, well, moving on, we're going to cover off some other matches in the different divisions across Tier 6 and below. I can only see one match in the south of Scotland. Nifty Wanderers were beaten 5-1 off of Lochar Thistle.
I did mention Lochar Thistle. I think they would do well this season. I did get a wee bit of a stick by Shove saying, well, they covered South of Scotland for 2 minutes. But look, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to make things up in terms of my knowledge. I do think with Freve moving over to the west, and obviously St Cuthbert's, Jordan's moved up, I think it's difficult unless you know the players and the level. Certainly, in terms of you, Ben, obviously you know the West really well. You work with Kilwinning. I've worked with Lowland League teams, and I've been covering the Lowland League for about 4 years. And East of Scotland, I know because obviously players that are coming from the Lowland League, and I've caught a few East of Scotland games and whatnot. So it's South of Scotland's difficult. It's just because we've never really fully focused on that. In fairness, but yeah, I don't want to make predictions if my knowledge isn't there.
I think it's one of those we'll cover the results and give them the mentions, but certainly we're not aficionados of the South of Scotland League. And as I said, I can only find one game took place yesterday in the South of Scotland Football League, so we probably can't spend too much time on it if that's the case. So apologies to Shove if we don't have the information at hand, then it's going to be pretty challenging. Just moving across into the East of Scotland. Quickly, a couple of results there. Dunefield Swifts beat Lothian Thistle Hutchinson Vale 3-1. Decent result for Dunefield.
Yeah, kind of expected, to be honest. I think Lothian struggled a wee bit last season. Certainly they've lost a few players. But Lothian are a funny one because obviously when you think of the name Lothian Thistle Hutchinson Vale, it's always the sort of youth element. The history with making players, and certainly they've got a history of having maybe amongst the best young players and Lothian and no surprise. Dunefield are often a solid team. I've kind of got no concerns of them being quite high up in the East of Scotland again this season. Straightforward result really.
A good result as well for Sauchie, 4-0 against Tynecastle. Obviously got a lot of time for Sauchie, and good to see them kind of start the season with a good convincing victory. Yeah,
again, Tynecastle are kind of similar in the sense of the youth setup with to Lothian. Sauchie, we're kind of fond of Sauchie, aren't we? Especially when they're in the cups. Decent result. But again, probably nothing out the order, nothing to raise an eyebrow at in terms of who they were playing.
The other one that probably stands out, Linlithgow Rose, Blackburn United 1-1 draw. I expected Linlithgow to get a result there, but Blackburn, managing to get a point.
Yeah, it's very weird because I swear all my predictions in terms of being who's going to win the league, obviously we'll probably get in with the West as well, but was it East Kilbride lost their first game, Linlithgow Rose drew, and obviously my prediction for the West lost their first game, so I've maybe jinxed them. I'm sorry lads, I've maybe jinxed them, but in fairness, Blackburn United is a good community club, do a lot in terms of their profile and stuff like that. Don't really know too much about their team this season. Certainly they've had a few guys on loan from like Livingston and that, and previously I need to actually look at their team. Not got around to that. This is what happens when you have to focus on what hundreds of clubs you kind of have to pick and choose, and then I'll get around to their team eventually. But no, decent. I'm sure Rose will be disappointed to draw that though.
All right, the final game then in the East of Scotland, Pennycook won 2-0 against Dundonald Bluebell.
Yeah, I got a wee bit of stick for not mentioning Pennycook from Dougie Penman. He was like, you never mentioned us. Everyone knows that I like Pennycook. I think they're a really good team. Playing against 10 men, I think Andy Forbes got sent off. But they overcame a Dundonald Bluebell team that I put as my dark horses with Stephen Husband in charge. That's an excellent result. But Pennycook, Stephen McLeish is probably one of the better managers in East of Scotland in terms of his experience. He knows exactly what he's doing. They have lost a few key players, obviously Nicky Reid and Kieran Watson going to FC Edinburgh. So, they'll be a top team again, I think. It's just they're probably not as far as last season in terms of their top team, in my mind anyway. But, I said to Dougie, I shouldn't be saying this on the podcast, but I would love it if Pennycook won the East of Scotland, obviously. But I still think Linlithgow are probably the strongest team in that league.
No favours, but is that one of those ones?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, moving on to the West Scotland Football League. We'll start with Premier Division. It was a 3-1 victory for Clydebank against Atherley. It was a 3-1 victory for Bede against Cambuslang Rangers. Cumnock defeated Darvel 2-1. It was a draw between Hurlford United and Kirkintarth Rob Roy. Largs, Thistle and Glenafton drew 1-1. Pollock beat Petershill 3-1 away. Auchinleck beat Troon away as well 2-1. And of course, Cowan Rangers beat Irvine Meadow 3-1. Just I'll leave that one till the end.
Well, since we mentioned it, obviously, let's go with Darvel getting beat by Cumnock. I know you've talked a lot about Cumnock, obviously, in terms of them being kind of probably going to do a bit better than everyone expects. Certainly, you may have called that right. One game in, Ben.
One game in. I mean, one game in. I think, I think Brian McGinn, he's a good manager, and I think the signs were there when he came in last year that he was building a team, and obviously he was kind of probably working with what he had. Certainly from what was brought in the summer and what was there from before and things like that. So. He was probably fortunate that the previous manager got guys like Jordan Moore into the side, and he was obviously sticking around for from last season. Definitely would say that Cumnock are a team on the up, and looking at what they did yesterday, I think you probably look at the game. I've watched the highlights already, and you probably say a draw was probably a fair result, but Big Jamie Barclay's made a cracking save right at the kind of towards the end, and Cumnock have just been up on the break and scored. Darvel had a man sent off, I think, kind of midway through the game, which has probably affected them. Mick Kennedy was on Twitter saying it wasn't a red card, and then about half an hour later came back and said it was. So that was quite interesting because he'd seen the video. But it's one of those. I think the first game of the season for Darvel. We know Darvel are a quality side. Just because they get beat off Cumnock, that's not going to change. But what I would say about Darvel, Kenny Young, the fixture secretary at the West Scotland, must absolutely hate Darvel because they start the season with home to Cumnock, then Auchinleck to Talbot, then the Buffs in their first 3 matches. Now, that is an absolute stinking setup of fixtures if you've ever seen anything like it. I mean, obviously, we'll move on to Auchinleck just shortly, but they're obviously a great side still, and get that, and obviously winning, and we're a new team in terms of what we've built this year, and we could be anything, but I don't know if you'd want to play those 3 teams in your first 3 games of the season, certainly.
Never went unnoticed that 2 players are now transfer listed after the first game. Bit of a weird one.
That was an odd one. Craig Little and Ryan Thompson literally transferred minutes after the game finished. They were it was put up on social media that if you wanted to sign any of those players to get in touch with Darvel. I don't know, obviously both players weren't in the lineup on Saturday at all. They weren't even in the squad, so I don't know if there's been something maybe said there that's meant that upset those players. And I mean, both decent enough players for this level, and I don't know, from what I've seen of Darvel's yesterday, defensively didn't look great. So I don't know, maybe there's been upset there. But Ryan Thompson is a very good player, and I think he's definitely could go to our West Scotland team no problem, and do quite well. So it'll be interesting to see him. Obviously, we'll watch a space in terms of Darvel, but as I said before, they're still a quality side. There's no denying it. You've seen that in the game, in the highlights, they had plenty of chances. They created plenty of chances. the guys are signed. Obviously, we mentioned Chris McGowan, former Bus player. He's a great left back. Started yesterday. Ross Meakin comes in as well, and he's a great player. So two great fullbacks, and they look like they're creating a lot of chances from those areas. We've mentioned Scott Ferguson and Lewis Morrison before. Great players up front, and guys like Ian McShane are never going to change. They're still quality guys in the middle of the park. So they've got players, they've got quality, and they've got depth. That'll be a thing. They can go into the game next week against Auckland Talbot and probably change that whole squad if they wanted to, and still be competitive. Right, next game then, Troon 1, Auckland Talbot 2. From by all accounts, it looked like a fairly close game from between the two for most of the match, but Auckland showed their class as ever, and got the victory.
Yeah, Talbot, for me, I think the interesting thing is obviously Dwayne Hislop retired recently. It seemed to all be out of the blue. Obviously, Mark Shanklin's taking a bit of a break from football. We hope he's all right, and hopefully he takes his time. Comes back to Talbot as good as he ever was. And Stephen White obviously joined the coaching staff. I don't actually know. I don't think they announced if he was playing or not. I didn't see the lineup at the weekend.
I'd imagine he'd probably be registered as a player and be available. I think if you're probably looking at Auckland in terms of succession planning, Tommy Sloan's not getting any younger as a manager. Stephen White's possibly the kind of person in waiting, maybe take on that role at some point. He's a very, very experienced player. Joining the coaching staff at Auckland is probably a great move for him. Obviously, we're not saying that Tommy Sloan's going to leave Auckland anytime soon, but the natives down Auckland, if they have a poor season, you probably want a new manager in, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did promote from within and bring in somebody like Whitey, or perhaps Gordon Pope, who's currently at Whitleys, and obviously a Auckland legend. But certainly for me, those guys moving on makes it a bit interesting. They haven't probably strengthened too much because they've probably kept most of the squad together from last year, Auckland. But the thing about Auckland is they're always going to be class for sure.
It's just a big loss, obviously, in terms of free midfielders just sort of going like that, But you mentioned obviously Stephen White potentially being down the line being Talbot, future Talbot manager, but the amount of managers in the West that played for Talbot and were successful players for Tommy Sloan, it's obscene. It really is obscene.
Absolutely,
So they could probably just have a committee of managers all managing Auckland Talbot from the West of Scotland League, but
it's one big WhatsApp group of managers. James Latta, Colin Spence.
It's crazy. It honestly is mental.
There's three just in one game yesterday involved in ex-Auckland. So yeah, right. Obviously those guys have learned obviously from the best in terms of coaching under Tommy. So you can probably see that shines through in their ability. Right, where we go next, Chris? What game do you want to focus on?
Let's go with Pollock. I think we were meant to speak about them last time, but we kind of never got round to it. So obviously I think they'll do well this season. Not saying you don't think they'll do well this season, but yeah. What were your thoughts on Pollock?
Yeah, obviously 3-1 victory against Peters Hill. Peters Hill being the new boys in the Premier Division. Yeah, I'm not massively convinced on Pollock, if I'm being honest, in their business I've done this season. I was very, very shocked that Murdy got a 4-year deal or something like that during the close season, because they had a poor end to last season, and a 4-year deal seems like a big one for them. But good win for Pollock. Obviously gets on the board, and Peters Hill, probably would have felt lucky to take anything from that game, but there'll be tougher tests for Pollock, obviously, this coming up.
Yeah. I still think I'm still quite impressed with their signings. I think they'll still do well. What were they, third last season? So probably there or thereabouts. So yeah, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see with that one. I know it was always interesting talking to you about Pollock. So another team that was promoted, obviously, Cambuslang Rangers. Your old mate Chris Strain took beef there and beat them. What were your thoughts on that result, Ben?
Good result for Chris. Obviously 3-1 away at Cambuslang. Wasn't too sure how they would get on in the season. so far. He's went and done a bit of business, put in Andy Monk from Broomhill. I know a guy that we talked about a lot last season with Moza, and kind of probably more so during the kind of lockdown period when we were watching the kind of games and the live streams. And Andy Monk looked like a real handful for Broomhill. So yeah, I mean, great result for Bees, and obviously Chris looking to took that job, looking to bounce back from after leaving the Buffs, and obviously wish him well. Got a lot of time for Chris outside of football. I talk to him fairly regularly, and he's a good guy. And we'll see what happens. Obviously, I'm looking forward to playing against him. I think one of the games that we're moving to Friday night is going to be versus Cowan at Buffs Park, so that'll be an exciting game, and I'm sure that'll be one that will attract a lot of passive Cowan football fans because of the nature of that kind of Chris coming back to the Buffs Park. But yeah, I mean, decent result. They sit top of the league based on them being alphabetically first because I think 3 teams won 3-1 yesterday, so that's the only way they're top of the league at the moment. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go. I think will they win the league? Don't think so. But I mean, they should probably finish probably kind of top end of the table, and Chris is a good manager, knows how to find players, so we'll certainly see what happens.
Yeah, so no other games in the West End. We don't have to talk about any other team. I'm looking, obviously, as you say, we'll leave your beloved Cullen and Rangers till last. They were playing against, obviously, fierce rivals, Irvine Meadow. What was it? You were at the game, I think, Benny? Yeah,
of course. Yeah,
of course,
I've got my duties, got my media duties. I had my media team there. I was taking a bit of stick in the old West of Scotland media group chat because I was rocking up with a team of 4 yesterday. We're doing bits in the media game at the moment. I've certainly got myself, I've got Gaz who does my video editing, David who's on the camera, and Vary who's our goalie, a goalie sister who's on to taking photos for us. So we always rock up to these away games now with an absolute squad. So I was taking a bit of stick for that the other day for having a bit of a team. But yeah, I mean, obviously coming back to the football, 3-1 victory for us, first game of the season. Absolutely delighted with that. Obviously been a massive changeover at Buffs since Chris left, and David Gormley's come in and signed probably, I think at last count, 15 players between the first team and the kind of some of the 20s boys that we've brought in as well, and development boys. Positive signs from what I seen yesterday. We're creating a lot of chances. We've got kind of guys and Gav Miller and Connor Bolger on the wings who are rapid and they've got a trick in them. And going back to your tricky wingers pattern, Chris, that's probably what we've got there. With those guys, we're playing 2 up top as well, which is also quite interesting from our perspective. Thomas Collins and Dylan Mackin up front. Dylan coming from Stirling. Thomas Collins was obviously there from last season. He'd been at obviously Broomhill and our BSC and Steny and East Fife and things like that in the last couple of years. And he's came to us last year as our top goal scorer. Started the campaign with 2 yesterday. So I mean, always nice to beat the Meda. I mean, that's the thing we'll always say is an absolute delight to get a result at Meda Park, and didn't see an awful lot from Meda to say that. But I think I mentioned them a few weeks back on the podcast. I think they might struggle. I didn't see anything more from them yesterday to say that they'll be any better off. But I will caveat that again with the fact that if they do start poorly, they probably will bag the managers and get someone else in who will probably see them to safety, because I think they've probably got a bit of budget there that they can spend money and go and get players. And maybe not so much like a team, maybe like if you were like a Peters Hill or a Cambuslang or an Arthurley or Rob Roy or Largs, who if you're towards the bottom, you maybe struggle to make a lot of major changes to get yourself out that bottom of the league. But yeah, great result for us. We move on to Troon on Saturday at Buffs Park. It'll be a good day there. Obviously popular at Troon as well, so looking forward to that. And then we play Darvel the following week, so decent run for us in terms of fixtures. Just obviously make sure the guys continue to gel, keep doing things the right way, and I think we'll do great this year.
Good, happy with that. No trouble with that with bit of banter or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean that's very very surprising. I mean, I've been to Meadow Park a couple of times now, and there has been a bit of bother, and kind of took abuse a few times. Got scalped in the back of the head by a lighter before, but I mean, we sat in the stand where the young team normally sit, and the game passed by with no real issues. There was no real major chanting before. We've had issues with them chanting kind of offensive stuff at players and managers and things. The game just passed by like a normal game. It almost didn't feel like a derby. I'll be honest. There wasn't that kind of bite that we're used to. Certainly, and I don't know why
It's good.
that
It's
is.
good sometimes, because you didn't
Yeah, I
really
mean,
want all the abuse stuff. But I
yeah.
mean, you still want it to be a derby. But no, it's good to hear.
No,
I mean,
I'm got to give them credit. There was no, there was barely a word said. As I say, I was sitting in the stand. We filmed just kind of off the stand at the top of a staircase, and myself and Gaz sat in the stand yesterday. We're both sitting in Buffs polo shirts, and didn't really have any issues. I mean, we probably actually had a bit of banter with the guys around us, and just kind of were talking about the game in general and things like that. There was no major drama at all. And either way, I would just like to shout out to. I think one of the Irvine Meadow fans took ill at the game, and I think had to go to hospital. So I just hope pass on our regards and hope he's okay. I
yep.
hadn't heard of last night, but certainly I know there was a bit of a kind of emergency at half time. So hope all is well is there. But yeah, I mean, back to the match, great result for us, and we'll just kick on and see what happens next.
Yep.
All right, well, that's pretty much it then from the official catch up for another week. I hope you've enjoyed that. Chris, where do we find the usual stuff on our social media?
Official catch up is at official catch up. Easy as that. We are at Lowland League Catch Up on Facebook. We're pretty much on every podcast site now, Audible as well now. Spotify, I actually put up the video version on Spotify, which is kind of new for us. Obviously, I think it goes video and audio anyway. So, yeah, so you can either see our faces or you don't have to. It's up to you. I mean, I'd prefer that you didn't see my face, but that's just me. But no, yeah, exciting. It's all about getting back into routine, isn't it, Ben? And then we can take it forward.
I think when we were recording what's Sunday, so we obviously hope to get this done most Sundays and get out early doors and get the ball rolling, get all your non-league football coverage. But thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you all soon. Cheers.